So what does it mean legally when someone's confidential information gets out there? Here with me now is attorney Don Schweitzer. Don, you are a prosecutor. You've handled identity theft cases. What's at risk here?
Well, when people get information that was taken from these medical records, they're able to purchase credit cards, obtain loans, and falsely impersonate other people.
What sort of liability does a company, if a hospital, face if they're not taking care of these documents properly?
Well, the hospital has to contend with several statutes, both federal and state. Some of these statutes are HIPAA laws, and they impose penalties, monetary sanctions, as well as the possibility that some individuals could be incarcerated.
This is probably more serious if it pertains to medical records?
It is, and in California, the laws are a little more stringent than other states because in California, there's been a high degree of identity theft, and so there's a lot of other statutes that also apply to this case.
Yeah, that's interesting. What recourse do consumers have when their records have been put out there by someone that just hasn't been paying attention?
Well, first they need to call the police, and second they need to call these individual credit card companies and all these other departments that'll put a stop on whatever activity is going on, and then they need to make some formal complaints with the local government.
Yeah, a lot of times, and we were talking about this earlier, how policies will say one thing, but when it comes down to execution of those policies, sometimes it's really a different case.
And that was the case here, where the Riverside Community Hospital apparently has a policy for shredding documents, but they hired a company to do it. The company saying they weren't hired to do it, and they're pointing a finger at a third company. So even though there's a policy, the hospital has to follow through with it.
Right, so who really is liable in that case?
All of them are. The companies, the hospital, as well as the county.
Yeah. Now, this doesn't just relate to paper. There's potential for electronic problems as well when information is transferred via the internet with computers. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, the codes have specific requirements for companies that gather, all businesses and entities that gather other people's information electronically. If they learn that this information was passed on to other people, they have a strong duty to notify people immediately about this. In this case, the hospital has a duty, even though this was an electronic, to put out notices to all these potential victims that their identity or information was out there.
Yeah. What should companies be doing to prevent these things from happening? I mean, you can have the policy, you can try to keep an eye on the other companies, but in the end, what's the best way to make sure that your policies are being carried out?
Well, there's nothing better than good risk management. People that follow through and keep these companies intact. If you're going to hire somebody else to shred your documents, you better have periodic checks that it's being done.
Yeah. Do you think there's enough oversight by the federal government on this issue?
I think that recently there's been a lot of legislation that's passed, both federal and state, that address this problem. The problem is that the ability for people to steal other people's identity is so great that I'm not sure that the government can do a real lot in a lot of cases.
Yeah, so what do we do as just regular people when we know we have information out there? You know, it's one thing to protect your PINs and your information that you're putting out there, but you know, when your records are needed for something like a mortgage or at the hospital, you're sort of putting your life in their hands. You are, and there's no guarantee that it's not going to be stolen at some point, but there's things that you can do. One is I would not give anybody's your personal information over the telephone. Over the computer, be very, very careful if you're going to enter into your personal information. Other than that, you are kind of just taking a risk. Yeah. All right, Don Schweitzer, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you.